Hi everyone. I went up to Solden for the women's race and I got some really good footage of the races. I wanted to share some interesting insights about the top two races, Alice Robinson and Federica Brignone. An excellent race by both girls, so let's get into it. Okay, so let's get into some of these stats. I was there at the race, so I was filming, so my vantage point was actually at the bottom and I could film all the way until around the first interval. That's where I'm going to have a look at, and having a look in the data here can actually give us an idea of what's going on and where we can line up our footage. Obviously, after the first run, Brignone was 0.4 behind. And we're going to look at the second run mostly, but at the very end, I'm going to show Alice's first run because it is absolutely sick. It is just ridiculous skiing. So I'm not going to do any analysis on this one because it's just really, really nice to watch, and I'll put that in full speed. But what we're going to do is we're going to have a look here at the second run and have a look at where actually Brignone made up the time. This is quite a cool thing on the FIS website. You can check everything with the World Cup races. For those who don't exactly know what is going on here, I'll just try and do a simple explanation so that you can understand a little bit easier. And that way you guys can go and have a look at different World Cup races and check and see where the splits are and the times are being made up. But basically, interval 1, this is the time from the start gate all the way until the first interval. Yeah. This is kind of in a weird layout for me, so I like to visualize it a little bit differently. So if I draw a little diagram here to kind of like this, hopefully this will make sense. Basically, if you subtract this time with this time here, it'll equal this time. Yeah. And that's the difference between, or the time that it takes to get from interval 1 to interval 2. So it can give you a little bit extra information in how this works actually. So I find this quite interesting. So basically, if we're looking here at the first interval, we can see that Brignone skied to the first interval with 10 seconds 0.69 and Alice skied with 10 seconds and 32. That's something that we can see. And then if we look, the time that it took her to get to the next one, to the next interval, was 18.8 seconds. And here you can see 19.1 seconds. Yep. So that's the difference in the time. And then as we're going down, we can have a look here. There's 29.8, 29.2. So this is a difference of 0.6. Yeah, so looks like Alice gained 0.2 of a second, because if we look here at our finish from the last run from Brignone, she was 0.4 behind, but from 29.8 and 29.2, it's a difference of 0.6 seconds. Yeah, but this is where it gets quite interesting, because between this interval here and interval 3 is kind of where I see that the move started happening. Let's have a look at these two numbers. All of that distance is practically lost. You know, you got like 0.15 or whatever difference now between interval 2 to interval 3. If you have a look here at the time that it took to get from interval 2 to interval 3 is 26.78, and this is 27.73. When we look at the video, this zone right here, this is going to be where I'd say that the first move would be made, just judging by the times here. And then, as we know, if we look down at the next thing, the total speed, this was registered just as you were coming off the steeps onto the flats, from what I could tell. If you have a look at the top speed here, that's also going to give us an idea coming from interval 3 all the way to the finish line, because this will also give us an idea of how someone maintains the speed, because at Solden the flat section is really, really long, and if you don't have good speed coming from interval 3 all the way to the flats, then you'll lose a lot of time, and that's obviously what has happened here. But it started a little bit higher up. It started right at this stage here, from interval 2 to interval 3. So we're going to have a look at that right now. Alright, so here we are. What I've tried to do is line them up as best as I can with the time difference they had. I'd say that this is roughly around the area that is first time split. So if we can remember back, it was about 0.37, I think, something around that. And you can see where Alice is here, and here we go. This is Brignone back there. So how I like to calculate the times actually is, or roughly judge the times by distance, is if you think about what the total course length is. The course is 51 gates and it was about 68 seconds for the run. That's about 1.4 seconds between each gate. And if you have a look at the distance between each gate, if you think about where one racer touches the gate to the next gate there, that's the distance. So you can have a look and kind of divide that into 10 bits as far as distance goes visually, and each one of these sections will be about 0.14. So this is just a rough guide of how I like to judge how far in the distance somebody is from each other. So that's kind of what I've done here, just to see. It'll be roughly this, but you'll just see where Brignone starts gradually catching up. There's a few things that we can have a look at quickly. One is the difference between these two scenes. Have a look at the light and the visibility on Brignone's side. This here is, you can see all of the little tiny chatter marks. You can see all of the little holes and ruts. The visibility is really good. And over here, it looks flat. Yeah. So, there's a lot of variables that go into the race. These things can make a big difference in how somebody attacks the course. That's I think, visibility and how that affects your mental state of how much you want to attack the gate can definitely be a big factor in making it up. And when it gets very rutty like this, and you can see the ruts. So this is one point that I want to bring up, is just have a look at how much edge angle Alice is generating here. Edge angle is a double-edged sword. It can be excellent, and it can also hinder speed as well. So there's a few factors, obviously, that go into how much edge angle is appropriate, and there's never, a set amount that anybody ever needs. Really, the fastest way to do something is doing the minimal amount necessary to get the job done. So actually, if you can create and bend the ski to do a really tight turn with the least amount of edge angle, that's probably going to be the best way to stay as fast as you can. The person with the least amount of edge angle, if the turns are equal, should in theory be a bit faster. And the reason for that is, if you think about the amount of edge angle you get, if you're having a lot of edge angle, this increases the force acting upon your body and the ski, and this is going to create extra friction. And then another point that you have to remember is that the time it takes to get your center of mass all the way down here, and the distance, is another factor. And then when you're coming down through the turn, the time it takes to get your center of mass down and out into the next turn, these distances traveled can add up a bit as well. So if you get really far inside, it's going to take you that split second longer to exit into the next turn. And then the other thing is, if we're going to have a look at the snow conditions, which we can see much better in Brignone, and it's just from the sun, you can actually see all of these chatter marks, all of these, lines coming across here. If you're hitting these with high edge angle, you're going to run the risk of having a lot more force going through your body. That's going to be one thing. You can chatter over them, and then with the higher edge angle and the higher force, if you chatter and slide out of the line and you scrape the edges on the snow, there's going to be just a harder scraping. So there's just a little bit more friction created, and that's a tiny little reason. But when we're talking about 0.17 that Brignone won by, that's the difference between where they are right now. Where she is now to where Alice is here, that's the distance that Brignone won by. It's nothing. So when you're looking at these tiny little things, they just kind of accumulate over time. The other thing is, about edge angle, is obviously when we have a huge amount and we're developing a lot of edge angle, obviously the force that's acting against us and pushing against us, the G forces that we're receiving, that are being generated from speed and edge and inclination, require more muscular effort to deal with as well. When you're at altitude on a very demanding course, if you're dealing with that 0.2 extra G's every single turn over 50 gates, this can be a little bit more taxing on your whole body and your respiratory system and your muscles and everything. So this can also have an effect over time. And I'm not saying, like, these athletes are so trained that I don't know exactly how they're feeling. But these are things to take into consideration as well. And it's not going to just be, oh, this is the thing that made that person win. There's just all of these little things that can add up and accumulate over time. And when you're talking about that much distance between someone winning and losing, it's really nothing. So these were kind of the things that I saw and that came to mind when I was just watching the run, was that I feel that those factors here, as we're having a look, Brignone just kind of skied a little bit less aggressive into the ruts. She had a little bit less edge angle, and as she came down onto the steeps, both of them kind of had similar lines. They didn't really have too much difference there. They both kind of got a little bit low often. They hung onto the edge a little bit. I would say that you can see snow spray when the sun is shining from behind much easier. So I'm hesitant to say that she had more snow spray, but you can notice it in this video. I would say it's mostly from the light. Here you can see the snow spray, and here now you can see the snow spray. It's much more evident in this because it's backlit. I'd say both of them are probably getting a similar amount of spray actually, but it's more evident in the left video. You can see here that Alice has taken a little bit more of a lead again in this. On the steeps, she kind of pulled away a little bit, and it's somewhere a little bit lower where Brignone is going to make the move. I'd say this is kind of where possibly you can see they're at about, this is that 0.1 seconds difference, 0.14 seconds difference. One thing to note, obviously, when you're in the air here, as Brignone is, there's going to be no friction on the skis. So, that tiny little thing here could have created just that little bit. You just have to worry if you land hard and you skid, then you're going to wash the speed off straight away. If you land and are very smooth onto the edge to carve, then you can gain a little bit of speed sometimes from that. If you watch Hirscher, he'd always do a tail lift. He was quite good with that. But here, just that tiny little thing possibly could have made up that little bit of time. And as if you just get that little bit extra speed coming down onto the flats here, just everything accumulates and gets and compounds a little bit as you're coming onto the flat, just maintaining that speed. Alice is just ahead, and yeah, this is where they're both neck and neck now. So from the second split to the third split to now, there was 0.6 of a second, and now this is where they're both at the same time. And then as it comes to the flat, Brignone was just able to manage and keep that speed. Yeah, they're the same here. Is that still the same? She was just able to manage. And remember, we're talking about, here we go. This is the difference of the win right now. So Brignone has just hit it, and see Alice is just behind. And if there's one more gate that she gains that much distance on, that's the difference in the win right now. It was such a small margin. Yeah, there we go, touching the gate, just ahead. That's the difference, just millimeters. I think if how Alice is skiing on the steeps, yeah, she's so much more powerful than the rest of the girls, that on some quite demanding courses, if she can string it together, she's going to be very, very tough to deal with. She's got that type of explosive rebound from turn to turn. And I'm going to put her first run up just as a video, just so you can watch it. But just a few things to note is just the type of spring and rebound she's getting from one turn to the next. And yeah, it's insane. So that's the analysis. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and hopefully I'll be able to make a few more during the winter. If you enjoyed it, please leave a comment below, and subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see everybody next time.